Ideas have consequences, and ideas oftentimes inform human behavior and the outcomes of different things in society. And unfortunately, it's with a heavy heart that I make this video, but I have to say to all of you that leftism and progressivism, especially as it relates to how they inform social policy, how it informs policy surrounding crimes, especially policy surrounding minorities, has led to unfortunately dangerous consequences that many leftists and progressives themselves are now themselves having to face the fruits of their work. Now, before I even go any further, let me say something very clear. This video will contain sensitive information. It'll contain a sensitive conversation about people who have recently lost their lives, and it is not my intention to make light or to mock or to denigrate the dead. The people I'm going to talk about in this video and the ideas they represent, these people did not deserve to die. No one deserves to die in the manner that these people died in. And unfortunately, I've seen many people on the right mocking these people and using them as examples for their critiques and not recognizing that there are human beings behind the person. There's human beings behind the idea. So my prayers and my thoughts go to the families of all those affected, and may their souls find peace in our Lord's heaven. Having said that, recently the news has been full of instances of progressive activists and influential people falling prey to crime in major progressive-ran cities where crime is rampant, primarily as a result of many progressive policies relating to crime. I'll explain a few of these people and their stories, and then I'll get into the broader significance, because we don't just talk about people, we talk about ideas, and the ideas are what is significant here. So it was reported that Josh Krueger, who was a gay a journalist in Philadelphia, he himself has been someone who, according to public record, has downplayed the significance of crime in Philadelphia and even attacked Scott Adams, also known as the creator of Dilbert, who on Twitter mentioned how dangerous urban cities are, and Josh Krueger just downplayed the whole thing and said you don't have a very high chance of dying of crime in a major city more than you have a chance of dying of COVID. Well, Josh Krueger was killed in his own home at 39 years old. Police suspect that it's because of an ex-lover, a tiff, but it's just a latest instance in a string of killings that have happened in Philadelphia. But of course, in that same city, Philadelphia, carjackings have increased significantly, and there was a big story that came out of an Asian man being beaten to death, being carjacked and beaten to death by his assailant in Philadelphia, as another instance of how bad things have gotten in that city. Another one that was actually quite popular was the death of Carson, who actually was a social justice activist who ran initiatives in New York City. Like, for example, he ran an initiative called No OD New York, which lobbied for safe ejection sites in New York so the homeless could have needles that they could use to undertake their drugs, which many cities like San Francisco and Philadelphia and New York City, of course, have tried, which haven't really fixed the homeless problem. It's simply emboldened the homeless in their addictions and created more of a market for criminals to sell things to them. And then, of course, that continues the cycle. But he lobbied for that. Unfortunately, he was killed by a man on his way back from a wedding with his girlfriend right next to him. A man who he approached and was really erratic killed him. Another one, PavaLePere, she was a CEO in Baltimore, and her stated aim was she wanted to disrupt the tech industry's reigning power structure of white men and make way for more women and other people from disadvantaged groups. And also, she wanted to use entrepreneurship to solve inequalities in society. Well, she invited a man to her home in that major city, and within 36 minutes, she was dead. It hurts talking about this, because these aren't human beings. These are people that didn't deserve to die. And yet these are people that promoted ideas that they believed were benevolent and they believed would lead to a better life for the disadvantaged and the downtrodden in their worldview. But in all reality, did nothing more than make their situation worse and ultimately lead to a more dangerous condition for so many more Americans. The problem with progressives is not that they're bad people. There are progressives that are wonderful people, the nice people you'll meet, but their worldview is tainted with error. Their worldview is tainted with philosophical errors that are disconnected from the truth of reality. There's a reason in the progressive frame you can easily get this idea that your personal truth, as reflected by your experience, matters more than the capital T truth, because the emphasis is not necessarily on the capital T truth. The emphasis is on the material condition of people in groups. And what's the best way to understand the material condition of people in groups? By listening to their experiences. So they take this truth and they apply it as a worldview. And that's just one of the many ways the progressive train has gone off the tracks and led to incoherency and so on and so forth. But these weren't bad people. These were simply people that believed in illusory ideas that ultimately led to their demise, and we have to seriously look at it. It's not our place to mock these people, because we're all human beings. We all have the ability to believe things that are crazy, cuckoo, that just make no sense and that lead us to a bad place in life. I know in my own life, 23 years on this earth, I believe things that are crazy and cuckoo and have led me to dead ends. But I also know that upon correction, I've learned from those things and I've been able to find better answers than what I had before. And while I believe I've reached the truth, I know I still have a long journey to go on in life. I'm going to continue to learn and discover and refine my mind as our founders did as they were working through the process of detaching from the great tyranny of the world at that time, Great Britain. But when you have an ideology that is completely disconnected from that pursuit of further knowledge and just presumes a bunch of things and then attempts to have that merge with policy, you will get disastrous consequences. The problem is not just that the policies are bad, because anyone can make bad policy, left-wing or right-wing. The problem is that progressive policies presume, as I mentioned, philosophical errors that make them dangerous when they are implemented. The initiatives of the people I've talked about and the initiatives that so many blue cities and blue states have undertaken to address crime are premised on two ideas: egalitarianism and social justice. Egalitarianism basically says we can live in a perfect world, a utopia, where equality, or in this instance, as is now known, equity between disadvantaged classes and other people can be achieved. And the progressive, basically, in the early 20th century, took this to be their goal, took this to be their primary vision, to achieve a world where the disparities and distinctions between classes are limited, and in their view, the least advantaged in society could become more advantaged than they were. This is why Woodrow Wilson announced in his essay, The Study of Administration, the separation between administration and politics, because political matters of principles and process and laws, in his view, were an inconvenience to actually running the government and running it for the people. But you can't run the government. You can't run a car. You can't run anything without reference to higher principles. How in the world would you be able to safely operate a car if you had no understanding of proper speed, if you had no understanding of turn signals, if you had no understanding of other motorists on the road, if you had no understanding of different terrain and weather conditions? You can't unless you are willing to get into a situation where you could die or others could die. Progressivism is like operating a car without understanding its internal functions and the significance of those functions to the lives of other people. But it puts itself as the savior when in all reality it is not. The egalitarian presumption behind ending cash bail, which has let a lot of repeat offenders out to commit more crimes, as we saw with that Tennessee dad who was killed, a father of 4, who was killed by a man who had been arrested about 60 plus times and had never served more than 6 months in jail. The egalitarian premise behind that policy is that the poor can't afford to stay in jail. It'll hurt them. So in order to be compassionate, we have to let them out early. You're looking at their material condition, but you're not looking at their character. You're not looking at the content of their actions. You just look at their material condition or their identity, and you make a presumption on that. That egalitarian assumption has gotten a lot of people killed and has made our cities more dangerous than really, I won't say more than they ever been, because in the 80s things were pretty bad, but I think we are reaching a level in America where American cities are becoming almost as dangerous as they were back then. It's getting to that point. Washington, D.C. right now, a progressive haven, is literally dealing with a spate of carjackings. A congressman was just carjacked because the egalitarian presumption around laws that govern crime is not connected with reality. Someone's identity does not give them special treatment in a society that values the principle of justice, which necessitates the rule of law. Someone's condition in life, someone's history, someone's lived experience does not give them special consideration when their behavior was undertaken willingly by them. We have removed the importance of free will as a determinator, as a understanding of why someone did something, and we've entirely attributed it to their material conditions. We've attributed it to their upbringing in life. We've attributed it to their race, to whatever. And that causes issues. And this is where the problem with social justice comes in. The social justice advocates that want to give drugs to homeless people quite literally wish to empower them in their condition, as opposed to looking at them as individuals, not people besmirched by society and harmed by the broader order, but as individuals. If we looked at them as individuals and asked, how did you get into this position in life? And if you go to Kennington, Philadelphia, where I have been, a lot of those people will tell you, I fell into drugs, got involved with the wrong people, and that's why I'm here. And yet the progressive is more than willing, in the name of compassion, to empower them to stay in that drug-addicted state by giving them easier access to their poisons. That's not empowerment, that is destruction. And yet the social justice advocate can justify this in his mind by saying they are people who have been dealt a bad hand by society, and we need to make sure they're taken care of, even if that means giving them an addictive substance that might not be good for their overall well-being. Because it's not about the individual person, it's about rectifying the social harms. So the social justice advocate sees these people, sees black people, sees gay people, sees anyone else in their hierarchy of oppression as just unwitting victims of some social phenomenon beyond themselves. And so when they make policy, they're making it on that basis without actual regard to who this hurts or who this helps. This is why the welfare state has been so dangerous to black Americans. Because once again, the entire basis behind the welfare state was material need and poverty, going all the way back to FDR in the 1930s, then going to LBJ in the 1960s. But material condition and material need is only one aspect of man's life. It is not the entirety of man's life. And when you sacrifice the whole of man's life and the whole of man's being for one aspect, what do you get? You get an incomplete picture of the human being, and you get a solution that is also in itself incomplete and therefore in error. And in my opinion, we need to stop using incomplete pictures to make policy. The egalitarian view of man, as Rousseau so put it, is that man is born good, but society messes him up. So if you can just change the society, you can change man. Now the other side of this is that man was born bad, but society makes him good. I think there's a third way. It's obvious to me that man is not born good. Man is not born bad. Man is born as he is as a neutral being with some preconceptions and some ideas and some motives, of course. We're not a blank state, but we're fundamentally neutral in terms of our character. And our character can be matured or it can be hurt depending on what we are exposed to throughout our lives. And if you are exposing people to a message of victimhood and perpetual conflict, as the social justice advocate views the world through, then there is no possible way you can empower people to be their best selves. And that's why you get this rising crime in cities. That's why you get all these issues, because you are seeing this solely through the lens of sociological ideas filtered through presumptions about society, presumptions about man that are untrue, as opposed to seeing them for what the complex phenomenon they actually are. No one deserves to die. The people in this video do not deserve to die. And I feel bad for them, and I feel bad for others like them, because they believe they are doing good. But unfortunately, it's not enough to do good. You have to do right. Because if you worry about doing good your whole life, you may do something that you are convicted is in your spirit is good, but in all reality is bad. The people who do good don't really ask themselves if what they are doing is morally correct or aligned with the truth. A lot of them simply have a conviction in their spirit, and they follow that conviction where it takes them, no matter of the truth of it. Do not let the heart be your guide. Let conscience and your reason as a human being come before the heart, and let them inform the heart. Because the heart itself is not enough to defend you from the terrors of this world, and the heart itself is not enough to reflect in your mind the true nature of reality. We have to really consider the ideas we hold and what they produce in society, or else I'm not entirely sure we're going to have a stable society in this great country I call America too much longer. Pray for the families, pray for the victims, but most importantly, understand that ideas have consequences, and there are some ideas we just shouldn't embrace, no matter how kind, no matter how nice, no matter how sweet they sound, because evidently they are doing nothing more than leading all of us to a destructive dead end. My friends, love you guys so much. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel, donate to me on Patreon, PayPal, Locals, join my Discord, which is in the comment section down below. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.